It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolás Maduro to justice. He was trying to get into a safe place. You know, the safe place is all steel. And he wasn't able to make it to the door because our guys were so fast.
Good evening. Tonight, the world is absorbing news that many believed would never arrive. Not in this form, and not this suddenly. In a dramatic overnight operation, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro has been captured by United States forces, marking one of the most extraordinary actions taken against a sitting head of state in modern history. The operation unfolded in the early hours before dawn, catching not only Venezuela's government off guard, but much of the international community as well. By the time the sun rose over Caracas, the country's leader was no longer in control, no longer issuing orders, and no longer on Venezuelan soil. Instead, he was in American custody. What happened overnight was not a war. It was not a traditional invasion. It was a precise, tightly controlled mission designed to remove one individual, and in doing so, instantly alter the balance of power across an entire nation. According to officials familiar with the operation, U.S. Special Forces moved with speed and coordination rarely seen outside of the most classified missions. The objective was clear from the start: capture, extract, and exit before the situation could escalate into open conflict. This was the culmination of months, possibly years, of intelligence gathering. U.S. agencies had reportedly tracked Maduro's movements with extraordinary precision. His residences, his security rotations, his travel habits, even his last-minute changes in schedule were monitored and analyzed. By the time the operation was authorized, planners believed they understood not only where Maduro would be, but how he would react once the first alarms were triggered. The mission began shortly after 2 in the morning local time. Multiple aircraft entered Venezuelan airspace at low altitude, avoiding radar detection. Electronic countermeasures disrupted communications in key areas, temporarily isolating military and security units near the target zone. Within minutes, ground teams were in position. Witnesses reported explosions and flashes of light near strategic facilities in Caracas, designed not to cause widespread destruction, but to confuse, distract, and delay any organized response. At the center of the operation was the compound where Maduro was believed to be staying that night. U.S. forces breached the perimeter rapidly, overwhelming security before reinforcements could arrive. Officials say Maduro attempted to move toward a secure area but was intercepted before reaching it. He was taken into custody alive. No prolonged firefight. No extended standoff. Just minutes from first contact to extraction. Shortly afterward, Maduro and his wife were transported out of the country under heavy security, first to a naval asset positioned offshore, and then onward toward the United States. During the operation, at least one U.S. aircraft reportedly took fire, and several American personnel were injured, though none critically. Pentagon officials say all forces involved were successfully extracted before dawn. By mid-morning, confirmation began to emerge. The Venezuelan president was no longer in power. Images released by U.S. officials showed Maduro restrained and blindfolded aboard a military vessel, a visual that instantly spread across the globe. Inside Venezuela, confusion followed. Government ministries fell silent. Military commanders scrambled for clarity. Conflicting statements emerged from senior officials, some insisting Maduro remained the legitimate head of state, others calling for calm while refusing to acknowledge who is now in charge. The power vacuum was immediate and dangerous. For years, Maduro's authority rested not on institutions, but on personal control. With that control suddenly gone, the question became unavoidable. Who governs Venezuela now? The United States has indicated it will work with an interim leadership, though details remain unclear. Officials have spoken of a managed transition, but have not specified timelines, security arrangements, or the extent of U.S. involvement moving forward. President Trump, speaking hours after the operation, described the mission as unprecedented, comparing it to the most daring special operations of the 20th century. He also stated that the United States would take responsibility for stabilizing the situation until a new political structure could be established. Those comments immediately raised alarms among allies and critics alike. Would U.S. troops remain in the region? How long would American forces be involved? And under what authority? There is also the matter of Venezuela's vast oil reserves. The administration has indicated that U.S. energy companies could play a role in rebuilding Venezuela's damaged infrastructure, a statement that has fueled accusations that economic interests were a driving factor behind the operation. International reaction has been swift. Some governments have condemned the capture as a violation of international law. Others have remained silent, waiting to see how events unfold. U.S. adversaries have warned that the operation sets a dangerous precedent, one that could be used to justify similar actions elsewhere. Inside Venezuela, the population remains on edge. For millions who oppose Maduro, his removal represents hope, a possible end to years of hardship and repression. For others, it represents uncertainty, fear, and the possibility of instability or violence. History shows that removing a leader is often easier than building what comes next. And that is the question now facing Washington. Was this operation the end of a crisis, or the beginning of a far more complicated chapter? Because the capture of Nicolás Maduro is not just about one man. It is about power, about sovereignty, and about how far a nation is willing to go when it believes diplomacy has failed. The world is watching what happens next, and the consequences of this night will be felt far beyond Venezuela.